Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to part 5 to our mobile RPG tutorial series in Godot. This series is sponsored by my Kickstarter course, which is in it's a Godot course on Kickstarter. It's in the last week. There will be a link to that and a card that you can check out if you're interested. Let's get started. Today, we're not going to be adding a lot of functionality to the game. We're going to be cleaning up our code and making things work just a little better. So inside of our battle state right here, well, first actually, I learned why we're having issues with autocomplete. And so the reason the autocomplete, I've had a few students mention this in the comments, the autocomplete isn't working because we set the default theme, and for some reason that breaks it. And I'm honestly not sure whether there's something wrong with the theme that we've created and that's why it's not working, or whether it's a bug in Godot. I'm not sure which one it is. So if you want to fix your autocomplete so that it displays properly, you can remove the default theme and then just set the theme here under UI and any other place where you end up creating stuff. So if we set the theme here, we drag over our default theme like this, and then I don't remember if there are any other, our enemy probably has it. So if we click on our enemy scene, we need to set it under HP label here. So theme, drag over the default theme, and then save. And then I don't know if this will fix it, but we might as well try. Clear this, close. Okay, so it's interesting because if you set the theme on a base node like this, it will propagate to all the children unless they have their own theme set as well. So we only have to set the theme on this one, and all of the children will use that same theme. Now we can test. If we come into battle, we can try and see if our autocomplete is working. On sword button. It's not working, unfortunately, still. Maybe if we go to project, quit to project list, and try opening this up again. Mobile RPG tutorial. Maybe this will fix it. Yep, that fixed it. So that's why the autocomplete wasn't working. Now we've got it back. It's a little bit of a workaround because I'd rather use a default theme, and maybe I'll figure out something's wrong with the way I've set up the theme, and we can do that again later. But for now, whenever you add a new UI element, you may have to apply the theme to it. If you add it to here, you won't, but if you add it somewhere else, you will. Well, let's get started. We're going to clean up battle. So first, we've got access to enemy here. We're also going to want to get access to the player stats on ready var player stats. So there we've got access to the player stats. And this is just a really bad way to go about this. The problem with this system here is that sure, if we press the sword button, we're going to deal damage, and then if the enemy dies, we'll remove our enemy. We'll set enemy to null and stuff. This doesn't feel like a turn-based game. It doesn't really work with turns. I mean, technically it is a turn-based game. We attack the enemy attacks us back, but that's not clear when you look at this code, right? This doesn't tell you that it's a turn-based game. So we're going to rewrite our code so that it's clear what exactly the game is doing and why. So we'll start with creating two new functions. Start enemy turn, and start player turn. It's that simple. And these functions make it pretty clear that this is a turn-based game and that the battle object controls the turns. We'll use the built-in ready function. Ready. Make sure you have an underscore before it to start the player's turn, because the player will start first. So start player turn, like that. And we can do some stuff here. So first, on the player turn, we're going to need to get access to the player. And the reason we'll want to get access to the player is because we're going to want to set the player's action points to full, because we'll be implementing the action point system in this video. So we'll say, well, we already have access to the player, so then we'll say battle action buttons dot show, because on the player's turn we want to show their battle action buttons so they can use them. Player dot AP equals player dot max AP. So we'll set the player's, we've named it player stats though. Player stats dot AP equals player stats dot max AP. There we go. And then we're going to want to wait until the player's turn is over. And we can do that using the yield function. So yield player stats dot, or player stats, comma, end turn. Once the player's turn has ended, we can start the enemy's turn. Start enemy turn right here. So yield will wait until this signal has been emitted from the player. Once this signal has been emitted from the player, then it will start the enemy's turn. So it will sit here and wait. It won't run the enemy's turn until the player's turn is over. Now if we can save this, we can come into player stats, and you can see inside of player stats we already have our end turn signal. So we just need to tell it when to end the turn. And we're going to be ending the turn once the action points are all gone. And one of my students, one of you guys in the comments also mentioned that we could be using clamp for action points, which is a good suggestion. So we'll be using clamp. Clamp gives it a min value and a max value, and we'll set it to 0 because we never want our action points to go below 0. And we could use it for all of them, actually. It's not as necessary for other things like health, because once the health goes to 0, we're going to die anyways. But it seems beneficial to do this as well for the others. So there, we'll use clamp. That will prevent health from going below 0 or above max HP. And then inside of here, we're going to say if AP is equal to 0. So for action points, I've gone all the way to 0. Emit signal, end turn. End turn. There we go. So we can emit this signal and end the turn. Now let's come back into battle. We don't really need this anymore. We're going to be fixing. Well, let's leave that for now, but we'll be changing that. So now for our enemy turn, what are we going to do on our enemy turn? We're going to hide the battle actions. Hide, because we don't want the player to be able to use actions when it's their turn. Then we'll say if enemy does not equal null, enemy dot attack, and we'll attack the player's stats. We'll pass that into the attack so it knows what it can attack. Yield enemy end turn. Now this one won't autocomplete because we haven't made that signal. Then once the enemy's turn is over, we'll start player turn, and that will create an infinite loop through the turns, right? Player turn, enemy turn, player turn, enemy turn. But they'll always yield until their turn is ended. And so it will start this function, and then once it reaches yield, it will stop running the function and wait. And then once this signal fires, then it will continue and run this, which will then come to here, wait, then come to here, come back up to here, and it will loop like that forever. So let's do the enemy. We'll come into enemy, and we're going to need to set up some stuff inside of here, because we've just got, this is a really bad way of doing it, right? I already talked about how this is a really bad way of doing it. So first we'll want to create a signal for end turn, because our enemy is going to have to end its turn. And next we're going to want to create a function for attacking. Attack, and this function will take a target, right, which will be the player. But maybe you'll add multiple party members to the game or something, which isn't going to be in this tutorial, but you could do that. And so being able to choose a target is useful. And I actually have it just wait just a little bit here before attacking, and I'm guessing that's because like we did up here, see how we play the shake animation and then we wait till that's finished and then we attack. Well, it's kind of awkward to attack immediately after shaking. So we'll try waiting here just a little bit. Yield get tree dot create timer 0.4, so 4/10 of a second, comma, timeout, and there we go. So this will wait for 4/10 of a second before we start our attack. And we'll say animation player, and we just play attack. We actually can copy this right here, paste it down here. So we get our animation player, we play the attack, and we yield until the animation is finished. Then we emit signal, end turn. So our attack should work now. The problem, well, we're not actually damaging the player, so let's add that as well. We'll have it after the animation is finished. We'll say target dot HP minus equals 3. And then we can get rid of all of this stuff up here. We do not need this. We'll get rid of our animation too here. We'll just have if HP is 0, then we die. Okay, now our enemy should be able to attack. Let's actually run the game and see what point we're at here. So we can use our sword, hits the enemy, deals damage. That still works how we would expect it. However, we've got a problem. We're not actually reducing our action points, so we need to do that here. So we'll say player.stats .ap minus equals 1. We need to reduce the player's action points each time we use an attack. So we can attack, it reduces our action point, attack, attack, and there ends our turn. The enemy attacks us, and then it starts the new loop again. So we've got our turn system in with the action points. Let's add some more to our enemy here. Let's come into the enemy script. And here, let's add a function for taking damage. So we'll say self.hp minus equals amount. And then we'll say if HP is less than or equal to 0. Let's one of the things you can do in Godot that I actually highly recommend is turning a lot of stuff into a function. So for this, we could actually make a function called isDead, and this function will return true if we're dead and false if we're not dead. And so we can just say return HP is less than or equal to 0. Because if this is true, then we're dead. And if our HP is greater than 0, then we're not dead. So then we can say if isDead Q free and well, we'll emit the signal. Emit signal died. And now we can take this out right here, because that wasn't really a good spot for that. The only thing we really want to do there is update our label. Then we can say else we can play our animation. Animation player dot play shake. So if we're not dead, then we'll play the shake animation. And I forgot my colon after is dead. There we go. Save. And that's gonna be pretty good set up that way. So now when we're in the battle and we use the sword button like this, instead of doing enemy HP minus equals 4, we'll do enemy dot take damage and then -4 for the amount. Well, no, I think we just do 4 because that's how much they're going to take. So take 4 damage. Now let's see if this gets our shake animation working again. Yep. And there we attack after the shake animation has finished. And it does deal damage. Now I'm going to show you guys how to call a function during an animation. And this is really cool. It's one of the things about Godot that I quite like. Let's click on our enemy here. And we have our animation player with our attack animation, right? However, we're dealing damage at the end of the animation, but that doesn't make sense. It would make sense to deal the damage right here in the animation at this point, 0.4. So in order to do that, we can actually create a function that runs right here at this point. So let's come into our enemy and create our function. We'll call this function deal damage. Function deal damage. And we can pass an amount in for how much damage we want to deal. That way, for different enemies, you could have a different amount. And we'll just say, well, we'll need to get access to the target here. So I'm not sure exactly how we'll actually go about that yet. For now, let's just have it print something. So let's not pass in an amount. We'll just have it print something here. So we'll say print deal damage. This is where we want to deal damage. So we'll create this function, and then we'll come into our animation player, and we will, up here you can add a new track. So we'll add a new track, and we'll do a call method track. And we want to call the method on the enemy. So that's where we're going to call the method from. So enemy functions. Then with our line here set at 0.4, where the attack actually happens, we can right click and do insert key. And at this point we can call an attack, and you can see our deal damage function right here that we can actually select. We could call any of these functions, but we want to call deal damage. So open, and you can see now it's going to call deal damage right at that point of the animation, which is really cool. So we can pass this through a instance variable. I'm not sure that's the right way to do it, but I'm just going to do it that way this time. So up here at the top, we may change this later, but up here at the top, we'll create a variable called target, set it equal to null for now. And then once we play attack right here, we'll set target equal to, we'll set self.target equal to target. So that differentiates between these two. This is the target that we're passing into this function right here, and this is our target variable. We can use self to specify, because they're two different variables. So then we'll have that information we can give into deal damage right here. So self.target.hp minus equals 4. And we're printing deal damage here. We can remove this here, and we can set self.target equals null. That's a little bit, I don't really like this solution, to be honest. But this is a live recording, so we're going to go with it for now. And then if I come up with a better solution, we'll adjust it later in the series. So let's run the game now and see how this works. We should take damage right when the enemy comes down and hits. Boom, there we go. Yep. And there we go. So the enemy, we're taking damage at the proper time now. And I think that's going to be all for this video. In the next one, we'll likely be changing how we do our actions, because I want to be able to add more actions, like a heal action and stuff that takes mana. And that's kind of the secret with turn-based games, is how do you make it so that they don't use the same thing every turn, right? So there's a reason to use different actions on different turns, because that's what keeps the game interesting. So adding mana and having healing will make it so that sometimes we'll want to heal, and our attacks will recharge the mana, so that will have the player want to use different things at different times based on how much health they have, how much mana they have, and stuff like that. And so kind of where I want to go with the rest of this series, I think this is a good time to talk about that. I want to have the basics in for the battle system, the turn-based battle. I want to have a basic game loop in, so you kill one enemy and another enemy appears. Even if that enemy is just a rat in this example, you can generate multiple enemies. And then I want to teach you guys how to add new actions and new enemies to the game that will appear in the game. And so a basic game loop, basic turn-based system, teach you guys how you can add new actions, your own actions, and your own enemies to the game, and then expand on the game farther. Because I'm not going to finish this as an entire game. I just want to get you started, but then teach you how you can expand on it with a video. And that's what I'm gonna aim for. So part of the reason I wanted to make this a short series from the very beginning, that was always part of the plan, and I want to try and finish it before the Kickstarter. There's only a week left on the Kickstarter, so I don't have tons of time to do that. So I think that's a good point to try and end on. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and learned something from it. If you did, give it a like and share it. And check out the Kickstarter, and I will talk to you all later.